Okay, so we're making our new class, and just like we always do, we delete all the extra stuff that we don't need. We add a main method. After we add a main method, like our basic structure for next date is going to be that we want to initialize our variables. We want to set up a loop. We want to check validity of date typed in, the date entered. These are just comments, so you don't have to type them if you don't want to. I'm just outlining what we're doing. Okay, so we're going to check the validity. If it's valid, then we're going to increment the day. Increment day, okay? This is what we're basically doing. So, to initialize your variables, we need a scanner, okay, because we're scanning from the terminal. So let's import java.util.scanner. And then let's create a scanner. Regular scanner, scanner scan equals new scanner, system.in, scanning from the terminal. Cool. After that, I'm going to scan in a string. We're going to do this kind of weird. We're using two scanners. One is going to scan in text, and the other one is going to take the text and it's going to turn it into integers. Okay, kind of weird, but it works. So we're going to call a string in text equals scan.nextLine, scan.nextLine. And actually, before we do this, let's tell the user what to do. System.out.println. We'll say type in a date. And then maybe we tell them the format would be month, month, day, day, year, 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 year. Ah, not that. Okay. However you want to do this. It doesn't have to be exactly the same. Okay. What? Somebody said wait. Yeah. After that, so we scanned in a line. Now I'm going to create two variables that are going to be helpful. Okay. One, I'm going to call last day, and it's going to just store the last day of the month that the user typed in. So I'm going to call it an integer. It's an integer, right? Because it's always going to be a whole number. And I'm going to call it last day, capital Y. I'm going to set it equal to 31 because there are more months with 31 than there are anything else, right? Okay. After that, I'm going to create a Boolean, and it's going to be called is valid. I'm going to set it equal to true to start. And what we're going to use this one for is this one's going to tell us if we determine that what the user input was invalid, I'm going to make this false so that I don't try to calculate the next day. If you are good from yesterday and you're like happy and you know what to do, go for it. Okay. Okay, so we made these two variables, and now I'm going to do a loop. Okay. So I want a loop. Oh, I also need one more thing. I need well, I have this in text. Okay. So I'm going to set up a loop. So the only loop we know how to do right now is a while loop. Okay. We have open, close, parentheses. This is where our condition goes. And then down at the bottom, I'm going to put a closed curly bracket because I want all this stuff to be inside of my loop. Okay. In my condition, I want to loop until in text is Q. Okay. The way that I define that is I say in text dot equals, and I put a Q right here in parentheses. Okay. But I don't want it to loop while it equals Q. I want it to loop until it equals Q. So I want it to loop as long as it's not equal to Q. Does that make sense? Okay, so I have an exclamation point in front of in text dot equals Q. Okay, as soon as I do that, now what I need to do is I need to take that text and I need to split it up into integers. Okay, so I'm going to create another scanner. So scanner scan2 equals new scanner in parentheses, I'm going to put the name of my string in text. So what this is doing is it's scanning the string for, I'm going to tell it to scan for 3 integers. Okay, so I'm going to call it int month. Maybe we'll just call it m, int m equals for ease. But if you already have it month, it's totally fine. What? If int m equals, I'm going to do scan 2 because I'm scanning from the second scanner, dot next int. Then I'm going to do int day equals scan 2 dot next int. And then I'm going to do int year, b, y equals scan 2 dot next int. No, not wrong at all. This is just the name of the variable, and I'm just being lazy by using letters instead of the whole name. Yeah, totally fine. You just have to be consistent throughout your whole program. So if you're using month here, you need to use month everywhere. If you're using day here, you need to use day. Okay, so now I have 3 integers. One's month, one's the day, one's the year. Okay, now I can start doing math with them. That's why we had to turn them into integers, because I want to compare them to other numbers. Okay, the first thing to check the validity that we want to do is we want to say, well, if month is greater than 12 or a month is less than 1, it's going to be invalid, right? True? Like that's like in 13, there's no month 13, right? There's no month 0. There's no month -1. So that's what I'm saying here. So I'm going to print out that it's invalid, system.out.println. And I'm going to say your month is invalid. Okay, and then I'm going to make this is valid boolean equal to false. Okay. Next, I'm going to check the year. So I'm going to say if y is less than 1, it's invalid. So negative years, we're pretending they don't exist. There really are negative years, right? There's just BC, and that wasn't negative. It's just weird. So system.out.println. This time I'm going to say year is invalid, and it should be 1 word. Sorry, guys. Invalid spell. What? What? So at this point, I'm not adding anything. So if you're still typing, you're fine. Not adding anything. We're checking to see if month is valid, and then we're checking to see if the year is valid. So this is like month validity check, and then this one is our year validity check. These are just comments. You don't have to add them. Okay. So I checked the month. I checked the year. What's the last thing we need to check? The day, right? We need to check the day to see if it's valid. But in order to know if the day is valid, we need to know what month it is, right? Because the number of days in a month depends on what month it is. True? Okay, so I'm going to do 2 if statements, and I'm going to say if month equals, so I'm going to say if month equals 4 or month equals 6 or month equals 9 or month equals 11, then I need to set the last day equal to what? How many days are in these months?
30.
These are 30. 4, 6, 9, 11, that's 30 days. Okay, and we already set last day to 31 to like initially, so maybe we don't change it, or maybe we do another if statement where we consider all those months. So month equals 1, or month equals 3, or month equals 5, or month equals 7, or month equals 8, or month equals 10, or month equals 12. Okay, a lot. Sorry. I mean, I'm not sorry. So I want you to observe in these if statements a couple of things. 1, on each side of these ors is a complete statement, right? Like it's something that evaluates to a true or a false by itself. Okay? Some people will try to do if month equals 4 or 6 or 9 or 11, but you can't do it that way because 9, 6, and 11 by themselves don't evaluate to a true or a false. They evaluate to a 6 or a 9 or an 11. Does that make sense? So each part of the OR has to fully evaluate to true or false. So we have all these, and in these months, last day is going to be 31. And then we have one more condition where the month equals 2, and in that case, last day equals what? We're assuming 28, but if you're doing leap year, this is where you do your leap year work, okay?
Way behind.
One more thing for us to do validity. We haven't actually checked in these if statements if it's valid, right? We just set what the last day of the month is. So we have one more if statement where we actually have to see if the day is valid. So what would make the day valid? Invalid. Anybody? Anybody? What makes it invalid? Yes, go ahead. Yeah, so if the day that they typed in is bigger than the last day of the month, then it's not a valid day. So let's write that. Let's say if day is greater than last day, then it's invalid. So system.out.println, day is invalid. And then after we say it's invalid, let's make that Boolean equal to false. I skipped it here too. Make it false there, make it false there. So every time we print out day is invalid, we're also making the Boolean is valid false. It's on the requirements document, but for 31, it's 1, 3, 5, 7, 8, 10, and 12. At this point in our code, we should have a loop. It'll run forever because we're not quite finished with the loop. But we will have a loop, and it will scan in whatever you type, okay? And then if it's invalid, it's going to print that it's invalid. And right now, it'll do it forever. So if you type in a date that's invalid, it's going to print out whatever is invalid infinitely, okay? But let's fix that real quick. So the reason why is because we're not ever changing what in text is. Right? So then you get here, it's still scanning from the same string in text, and it's scanning the same month, day, and year. Okay? So at the very bottom of this program, like the very bottom of your loop, like right at the end of your pink, okay, we're going to type in one thing right here. We're going to say in text equals scan. This is our regular scanner, not the second scanner. This is the first scanner we made, dot next line, because I wanted to scan in a string. Okay? It's going to save it in text, and then we're going to parse through it with that other scanner in a second. Okay, so if I compile, oh, sorry guys, I called it M. Struggle is real. This saves some space though. So I'm deleting all these. It makes it fit better. Okay, and then let's change this one. And then last day is a capital D. See, everybody makes mistakes, guys. Day is D. Okay. So now it compiles. If I run it, all it should do is correctly tell me if something is wrong. Like if it's an invalid day. It's not going to increment anything. The only thing it's going to print out is blank is invalid, the day, the month, the year. Okay, so if I type in 3, 4, -5, it says the year is invalid. If I type in 3, 4, 2002, it doesn't do anything because I haven't told it to do anything if it's valid yet. Okay? So right now, the only thing it's doing is checking to see if it's invalid. So if I type in 13, 4, or 2, whatever, okay, the month is invalid. If I type in 2, 30, the day is invalid. So it should correctly check to see if the date you entered is valid. That's all it's doing. Okay? And then if I type Q, capital, it quits. It terminates. Okay? Okay, so now it's correctly checking errors. Now we want to determine, like, we need to actually increment, right? And the only time we're going to increment the day is if it's valid. So I'm going to make a big if statement that I put everything else inside. So I'm going to say if is valid. Okay, and then I'm going to close that. Everything I write now is going to go inside of this if statement. Everything goes inside here, okay? So, the first thing, there are three conditions, right? There's the condition where I just changed the day, right? So I enter like March 4th, 2020. The only thing that I do is I make the day go up by 1, right? Right? Yes, yes, okay. Then there's the condition where it's the last day of a regular month. So it's March 31st, 2001. Okay, and so what would happen there? What happens when it's the last day of a regular month? It what? No, we don't want it to end. What do we want it to do? To print out the next day. What's the next day after March 31st, 2000 and whatever year? What? 1 what? What month? What month comes after March? April. My daughter even knows her month. She's 4. Just to call you out. I'm kidding. I'm teasing you. I'm teasing you. It's okay. I think you're a great person. Okay. So you go from March 31st, then it's April 1st, 2000 whatever, same year, right? So you roll over the month. It increments. The day resets to 1. That's what happens when it's the last day of a regular month. Last day of December, so December 31st, New Year's Eve, what's the next day? January 1st of the following year. So the year increments, but the month and the day start back over at 1, right? So that's 3 situations. Which one is the least restrictive, or the most restrictive? Which one will happen the most, or the least, sorry. So it's the most restrictive, it happens the least. Which one? What? Okay, so which of those 3 conditions, so the end of the year, it rolls over month and day. The end of a month, it rolls over the month and it changes the day. Like regular day, you just add 1 to the date. Which one happens the least? The year. So the only time we're going to roll over the year is after December 31st, right? That's the only time. So that's going to be my first if, because it happens the least. Does that make sense? It is the most restrictive. So if month equals 12, so it's December, and day equals last day. That's my first condition, right? Like that's that most restrictive. That means it's December 31st, right? If that's the case, then what do I do? What happens?
Reset.
What?
Reset.
What do I reset?
Year.
I increment the year, right? So year, I add 1 to. Have we seen this notation yet? Plus, plus? A little bit? You weren't here for the warm-up yesterday. It's the same as saying y equals y plus 1. Okay, same thing, does the same thing. It's just a little shorter. Okay. So we increment the year, but then what do I do to the month and the day? What? What do I change them to? Is there a 0th day? Like, I change the month back to 1, not n. Month goes back to 1 because now it's January, and the day goes back to 1. So I'm assigning it a new value. I'm assigning it the value 1 because they're resetting, right? Okay. Where'd you go, Roberto? I'm proud of you. What was our second condition? So this was the condition where the The month was 12, and the day was the 31st, so it's New Year's Eve. What's our next condition? The end of any month, right?
Yes.
Okay, so this was just the end of December, because that changes the year. The end of the rest of the months doesn't change the year, right? It just changes the month and resets the day, right? So let's say else if day equals last day. So notice that if I did not have an else if, day isn't a real variable, it's just d, sorry. Notice that if I didn't make this an else if, d could be last day here and last day here. It wouldn't be because we'll change it, but it could be, right? Like this day, both conditions have this requirement. Do you see it? Okay. So that's why I want this one first, the most restrictive first, and then the next restrictive, because if it's an else if, it's going to do the one that it meets first only, right? Okay. So in this situation, it's the last day of the month, but it's not December. What do? I increment the month, and then what else do I do? What do I do to the day? I reset it to 1. I assign it to be 1. I tell it be 1, right? Every other condition, every other situation is just going to be a regular day, right? If it's a regular day, so today is October 4th, 2019, what's tomorrow? What? October 5th, 2019. I don't change the month and I don't change the year, right? So what do I do inside of my else? It's the catch-all for everything else. What do I do? What did I do to go from October 4th to October 5th? Added 1 to what? I just do day plus plus, d plus plus. Okay, so now I've incremented, but have I printed anything out? No. The last thing I need to do is I need to print out the value of my new day, month, day, year. Okay? So system.out.println, I'm going to print it as, I'm going to say next day is. Okay? When we have values that we want to print, we can combine them with strings with the pluses. We've seen this before. You use a plus. It's how you like squish things together that you want to print on the line. So I want to print the month first, then I want to do a space, then I want to print the day, then I want to do a space, then I want to print the year, and then I'm finished. That's my whole line. Month, day, year, with spaces in between. Cool?
No.
Now you should be able to compile, and it should totally work. Other than leap years.